Some games leave a lasting impression. Even as the years go by, technology changes and gaming evolves. The Seventh Guest is one of those games. It was one of the very first horror games to truly blend together mystery, puzzles, and full motion acting into something that felt unlike anything else at the time. It wasn't just about scares, it was about atmosphere. It was about uncovering the mystery one room at a time, while Henry Stauf's shadow seemed to linger over every hallway.
There we go.
And even today, over 30 years later, people still talk about this game. Not because it was perfect, but because it was unforgettable.
But it doesn't have to be that way. Not if you and I work together. We can solve Stauf's puzzle.
So when I heard there was a fan-made sequel called The 13th Doll, I'll admit I was pretty skeptical. Fan-made games are always a bit of a gamble. Sometimes they're incredible passion projects that understand exactly what made the original game so special. But other times they miss the point completely. So where does The 13th Doll fall? After playing, I can confidently say this is one of the most ambitious fan-made games I have ever played. It isn't without flaws. In fact, I have some pretty significant criticisms. But from the very beginning, it's quite obvious that the people who made this game truly love The Seventh Guest.
I'm not going back to a padded cell.
Tad, I made a mistake, and I'm sorry. I overestimated myself and the impact this place would have on you.
Today I want to talk about everything I liked, everything that frustrated me, and whether I think fans of the original should experience this sequel. So let's head back to Stauf's mansion one last time.
Cool.
Hello, Dr. Richmond.
Who is this?
Oh, please. A hypothesis, Doctor. Whom might you think?
Before we jump into the 13th Doll, I think it's briefly worth talking about what made the Seventh Guest such a beloved game in the first place. Released in 1993, The Seventh Guest arrived during the CD-ROM boom and quickly became one of the showcase titles for the format. Back then, seeing live-action actors in a video game felt revolutionary. Sure, looking back now, the green screen effects feel a little dated, but at the time, they were incredibly impressive.
Wait, I know who you are! I know who you are! You're the Seventh Guest!
The mansion itself became one of gaming's most memorable locations. Each room had its own personality, and each puzzle within the room felt connected to the guests that had stayed there.
Make your move, if you dare.
And Henry Stauf. Even though he isn't physically present for most of the game, his influence is everywhere. And that's one of the things that made the original so memorable. It wasn't relying heavily on jump scares. Instead, it created an unsettling environment that stayed with you long after you turned the computer off.
Oh man, where are we?
Of course, the game was also famous for another reason: the puzzles. Some players loved them, while others absolutely hated them. And if you've ever played The Seventh Guest, I'm sure you remember at least one puzzle that had you completely stuck. That reputation has followed the series ever since.
I don't know what I'm doing here. It's very interesting.
So what exactly is the 13th Doll? For those of you that haven't heard of it before, The 13th Doll isn't an official sequel from a major game studio. It's a fan-made continuation of the original story. Now, when I say fan-made, it may be lowering your expectations a little bit. I know it did for me. You're probably thinking something pretty small. A few familiar characters, a handful of new puzzles, a short adventure made by dedicated fans. But that's not what this game is at all. It feels like a full-length game. There's plenty of new story content, new puzzles, 2 playable characters, original music, and beautifully recreated environments. Whether you end up loving or hating this game, it's hard to not respect the amount of work that clearly went into making it.
He used to be a great man. Generous, kind, loving. I would have stood by his side. Through anything.
The very first thing that struck me when I started playing was just how familiar everything felt. Walking into the mansion immediately brought back memories of playing The Seventh Guest. It has the same sort of mixture of elegance and decay. I found myself wondering what secrets hid behind the next door, and that's exactly the feeling I wanted. It never once felt like someone trying to imitate The Seventh Guest. It felt like someone trying to continue it, and that's a very important distinction.
Why was that so easy? Ooh, I found a doll part.
I think it's impossible to review this game without acknowledging the amount of passion that went behind making it. Games like this don't happen because someone's looking to get rich. They happen because people genuinely love a franchise. You can tell the developers really cared about getting the atmosphere right and making long-term fans feel at home. This passion shines through in almost every aspect of the game. And I couldn't help thinking, even before I reached the ending, that this game truly feels like it belongs. And that's probably the biggest compliment I can give it.
Soon the doll will be complete. We must finish it. We have to stop the doctor before he gets to stop.
Now, I also want to be fair. Just because this is a fan-made game doesn't mean it gets a free pass. If something doesn't work, I'm going to say it. If something frustrates me, I'm going to talk about it. I don't think giving a project praise just because it's fan-made is helpful. But at the same time, I think it's important to recognize what an accomplishment this team made. Making any video game is difficult. Making a sequel to one of the most iconic horror puzzle adventure games of the 1990s while trying to uphold decades worth of fan expectations is incredibly challenging.
Marcus! Have you been misbehaving, Marcus?
By the end of the first hour, I already had a pretty good idea of how I felt. I was intrigued by the story and was enjoying exploring the mansion. The atmosphere had immediately pulled me in, and I was genuinely excited to see where the story went next.
I think that's the answer to my question.
If you want to get to Tad, you'll have to defeat me first.
At the same time, there were already some hints of issues that would become more noticeable later on. Certain puzzles were already starting to really frustrate me. And I noticed that the game's audio mix wasn't always as polished as I'd like. At first, I thought that they were just small hiccups, but they ultimately ended up being bigger issues as the game went on.
Yeah, alright. That was so fun.
But despite those early concerns, one thing never changed. I wanted to keep going. I wanted to uncover the mystery. And I wanted to see how this fan-made sequel handled Henry Stauf's legacy. So if your game keeps me curious enough to push through difficult puzzles and occasional technical frustrations, you've done something right.
I don't like this one. Of course, I really liked the other one, and now this is
horrific. So with my expectations set, let's talk about the story, the new characters, and why the 13th Doll succeeds at feeling like a genuine continuation of horror gaming's most beloved classic.
Take your breath away.
So now that we've talked about first impressions, let's dive into what I thought was one of the 13th Doll's greatest strengths: the story. Anytime someone makes a sequel to a beloved game, especially one that's been around for decades, they're taking a huge risk. Fans already know the characters, they know the lore, they know the atmosphere. And if you get even one of these things wrong, people are going to notice. That's why I was a little nervous going into the 13th Doll. I was wondering if it was going to feel like a fan fiction project wrapped in a seventh guest skin. Thankfully, that wasn't my experience at all.
It's to die for.
One of the biggest compliments I can give this game is that it genuinely feels like a part of the seventh guest universe. The developers clearly took the time to fully understand the story instead of just copying the visuals. The darkness surrounding Henry Stauf still feels mysterious. The supernatural elements still feel unsettling. And the mansion is still filled with secrets that slowly reveal themselves as you explore.
Right now, you have no idea what you're dealing with. Only I can stop what's here. Ted, please, leave. Ted, if you don't come with me, it could cost me my job. There's a lot more here to lose than just your job.
Rather than trying to completely reinvent everything, the 13th Doll focuses on ideas that longtime fans have had for years. It asks, what happened after the original? And the answer feels completely believable. As a huge fan of the seventh guest lore, it was incredibly satisfying to see this story unfold.
Messes you.
What? How did you...
I've been stuck here with the rest of them. Ever since you left us. Since you abandoned us.
One thing that stood out to me throughout the game was just how respectful it is to the original source material.
Something I might need.
Sometimes with fan-made projects, there's temptation to throw in endless references just to show, hey, I'm a fan too. Thankfully, the 13th Doll doesn't completely rely on nostalgia. Yes, there are references for long-term fans, but usually they feel natural. And they're there because they're part of the story, not because the developers want to wink at longtime fans every 5 minutes. That restraint makes those moments feel even more enjoyable. An eyeball. One feature I absolutely loved was the decision to include 2 playable characters. It was probably my favorite addition to the game.
What is it?
Instead of experiencing the story from a single perspective, you were able to see different sides of the mystery unfold. It kept the pacing fresh.
As you wish.
Once you got comfortable with one character's investigation, the game switched perspective and gave you a different piece of the puzzle. I thought it was a really smart decision from a storytelling perspective. Having 2 playable characters also makes the mansion feel bigger. Different characters notice different things, and they react differently. They bring their own personalities into different situations, and that keeps the narrative from feeling repetitive. It's something I wouldn't mind seeing in official 7th guest games as well.
Are you a good boy, Marcus?
Another thing I appreciated was how the story takes its time. It doesn't explain everything all at once. Instead, it slowly reveals information piece by piece. And that's exactly how a haunted house mystery should work. Each room raises another question. Each document provides another clue. Each conversation hints at something much larger going on beneath the surface. I constantly felt like there was another mystery waiting for me around every corner.
Guys, you're not yourself. This house has gotten to you. Stauf has gotten to you.
And who told you that? That woman?
Without getting into spoiler territory, I thought the cast did a great job. No, they aren't the most deep or complex characters you'll ever see in gaming, but they don't need to be. They serve the story well, and they react believably to the bizarre situations surrounding them. Most importantly, I cared enough about the characters to keep playing. That's ultimately what matters. If a horror game can make you invested enough in its characters, it makes the mystery and scares all that much more effective.
Damn fool. You should have known not to do something like this. Now look what's happened.
Is every performance perfect? No, of course not. But everyone feels committed. It doesn't sound like anyone's running lines with no emotion. The slightly theatrical performance style fits the Seventh Guest series perfectly.
Help! You had your chance. Get away. Leave me alone!
One thing I kept noticing while playing is how much personality the mansion has. Stauf Manor has always felt like its own separate character. It's not just a backdrop, it's part of the mystery. Each room tells a story. Some feel elegant, while others feel disturbing. Some make you wonder what happened there years ago. The developers captured that sense of curiosity really well. Even when you're just simply walking down the hallway, you're looking around, wondering what's going to happen next.
Girl, have you seen her? Where is she? I must find her. I have to find her.
More than anything, the 13th doll feels like it was made by people who genuinely loved the Seventh Guest. Not people that were looking to replace or improve it, but people that wanted to create just one more adventure in a world that they loved. And that passion really shows. Whether it's through the story or the references, you can tell that the developers really understood why fans are still talking about the Seventh Guest decades later. And that authenticity goes a long way.
Sometimes a spider has to travel to get to its meal.
Even when the game stumbles, and we'll be talking about some of those issues in the next section, I never got the feeling that the developers misunderstood this series. In fact, I think they understood it remarkably well. And despite all of its flaws, I found myself enjoying the experience. Because at its core, it's truly another visit to Stauf's Manor. And that's something I was all too happy to experience again.
Sacrifice yourself. The window. It's the only way. The only way.
Of course, no matter how good the story is, this is still a Seventh Guest game, which means it's only a matter of time before you meet the real stars of the show, the puzzles. And that's where my opinion starts to get a lot more complicated.
I don't know, like,
Going into this game, I expected difficult puzzles. It's almost a part of the Seventh Guest DNA. The original certainly didn't hold your hand. It wanted you to think outside the box, experiment, and sometimes stare at a puzzle for an embarrassingly long time before the solution actually clicked. So with the 13th doll, I certainly wasn't expecting an easy ride.
Really? Okay, whatever.
But there's a difference between a puzzle making you feel clever when you solve it, and a puzzle making you feel like you're banging your head against the wall. Unfortunately, I experienced both.
But I think why?
Let's start with the positives because there are definitely some puzzles that I really enjoyed. Some of them captured exactly what I love about the series. There are some puzzles that require you to use logic, and others that require pattern recognition. Sometimes they want you to observe your surroundings, and other times to pay attention to clues in different parts of the mansion. And some puzzles require you to just slow down and think differently. Those are my favorite kind of adventure game puzzles.
I enjoyed that puzzle. That was fun. I like that.
When I finally solved those puzzles, I had that satisfying moment where I thought, oh, of course, that makes perfect sense. That's the kind of feeling I want from a puzzle game. And it reminded me of why I enjoy The Seventh Guest so much in the first place. Infinitely better than the, I don't even know what you want to call it, the green and blue balls. But then there were the math and chess puzzles. And I have to be honest here, those absolutely killed the pacing for me. Now, I know there are people out there that genuinely love those two things. And if you do, your experience may be completely different than mine was. But when I'm sitting down to play a horror puzzle game, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for puzzles with mystery, exploration, and problem solving. I'm not looking to feel like I just sat down to a math exam.
Dumb puzzle. I can tell just by the looks of things here. No.
Now we need to talk about what is, without question, my biggest criticism of the game: the audio. Which is surprising because the game does so many other things right. But the sound mix is rough, really rough. There were times where I could not hear what the voice actors were saying because the music was so loud. Instead of creating atmosphere, the soundtrack was competing with the voice actors, and sometimes it completely overpowered them, which is a shame because I thought the voice acting was actually pretty good.
Okay, I was gonna bump the volume because when they were talking, I was struggling to hear them. But I'm concerned because this music is really loud.
The actors put a lot of effort into their performances, but if I can't clearly hear what you're saying, then that's a problem. It's frustrating because the issue wasn't with the performances themselves, it was with presentation. And it wasn't just the music. The audio was inconsistent throughout the entire game. One conversation would be perfect. The next would be really loud. The one after that would be super quiet. I found myself constantly adjusting my volume, and that's not something that you want your player to think about. Audio should be supporting. It should disappear into the background. You shouldn't constantly notice it. And I did. And every time I noticed it, it pulled me right out of the story.
Alright, who don't want to be here? Music's blasting again.
My favorite thing about the entire game is how well it respects the seventh guest. Nowadays, fan-made games, sequels, and remakes seem to want to modernize everything, and that isn't necessarily a good thing. The 13th doll doesn't forget what it wants to be. It wants to feel like another adventure from the seventh guest, and in that it succeeds. It honors the spirit of the original incredibly well.
Thornfield really didn't say much about Stauf?
No, barely even a word.
That's surprising. Virtually every patient here has been affected by that name.
Every single patient? I wouldn't even think that's possible.
So would I recommend the 13th doll? Yes, absolutely, but with a few warnings. If you're a fan of the seventh guest, this is probably one of the best fan-made continuations you could possibly ask for. The story feels authentic. The atmosphere is excellent. The voice acting is surprisingly solid, especially for a fan-made game. And most importantly, the game understands what made the seventh guest so special in the first place. However, be prepared for some extremely difficult puzzles, especially if chess and math aren't your thing. Those sections seriously interrupted the pacing for me and made my excitement about the story take a back seat to my frustration over the puzzles. And then there was the audio. The audio for me was the biggest flaw in the entire experience. The inconsistent volume and music drowning out dialogue is hard to ignore in a story-driven game where listening to conversations is such a big part of the experience. I think if those technical issues had been cleared up, this game would have made a much bigger impression on me.
Step in the right direction. The impact it could have on Tad, he'd be happier, healthier. Think of the impact on the rest of the patients.
I see that. I do.
I need you to trust me, Anna.
Despite those criticisms, I still walked away impressed. Making a sequel to a beloved classic is hard. Making one as fans with limited resources and enormous expectations is even harder. The fact that the 13th doll succeeds as often as it does is impressive. And for me, the game got the heart of the seventh guest right, even if some of its gameplay decisions and technical shortcomings held it back from greatness.
Stop the car, quick!
Did you see that?
Ted, wait!
If you've played the 13th doll, I'd love to hear what you thought. Did you enjoy the harder puzzles, or did they stop the game in its tracks for you? Did you notice the audio issues as well, or did it not bother you? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. I've got plenty more game reviews coming your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Hi, silly.
That's it!
It's going off the rails. Up next, Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney.